Mayor Casper, what a pleasure to have you, and what a pleasure to see that you're in your office working. We so appreciate you taking a few minutes with us. It's a treat to have you, and I just want to welcome you to this forum.
Well, I'll tell you that whenever your name and the name of CEI or College of Eastern Idaho comes up, I smile. So I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, that again, we'll get to that in a bit. But you're one of three people when I came that really knew what this region needed, and we're almost 4 years into this now. So it's amazing for you to think about this. This was a thought in a few of your minds, and now it's a real thing.
Yep. I hadn't even taken office in 2014 was when I took office. I was elected in late 2013. And before December was over, Wendy Horman, who is Representative Wendy Horman, and I were meeting and already discussing how can we move our technical college into that community college mode. And then we quickly brought in then Senator Dean Mortimer, who just retired, and the three of us started holding meetings, and boom, the critical mass of amazing folks came together. And it took us a couple of years to have that dialogue and to raise the money that we needed. Many of us put in our own personal cash to try to study and lift this, but it was a great result. I'm so excited for where we are now.
Absolutely. So here's the way we like to start, because most people know you, but it is wonderful. I love to call you Dr. Casper, of course. You've got multiple titles, but why don't you spend just a couple of minutes and give us some context of your background?
Well, I'm a 57-year-old divorced mother of four. All of my kids are either in college or contemplating going back, right? I have two who are undergrads, one who's a graduate student, and one who wants to get back to grad school. She's just earning money and filling out applications. So higher ed's a big deal in our family. However, I was the first child in my direct line to graduate from college. My mother did have a brother who went to college and graduated, and my father did have a brother who went to college and graduated. So I have two uncles with graduate degrees, but beyond that, nobody else has graduated except for a sister who came after me. I have an MA and a BA from BYU in Provo, Utah, and I have a PhD in political science from UC Berkeley. Mm-hmm. I'm in my second term as the mayor of Idaho Falls, and this opportunity to serve as the mayor has been an incredible window into for learning and for personal development and exposure to so many interesting things. If I died right now, my tombstone would have to say that I'm lucky and grateful for all that I have in my life.
Absolutely. So what a great introduction. Let's kind of delve into being a mayor. So you always described Idaho Falls in its complexity, and there probably aren't mayors that have more complexity. They might be bigger. There's a few cities bigger, but maybe not more complex. So just reflect for a couple minutes on the city and what you're trying to do and the challenges.
Well, thank you for, getting that message that I've tried to put out. I want people to appreciate that Idaho Falls, up until the census data comes out and proves the exact numbers, we are typically cited as being the fourth largest city in Idaho, but we're the largest city that's outside of the Boise metro area.
Right.
And that the number of operations that the city of Idaho Falls performs is greater than those other three that are larger than we are, and as far as I know, than any other city that isn't larger than we are. We have, for example, we generate our own electrical energy and or electricity, and that carries with it a lot of federal regulation and a lot of there are a lot of requirements that we need to meet. We have a fiber utility that coexists with that electric utility. We are going to be celebrating having our 1,000th customer next week. In just a little over a year's time of being in existence, Idaho Falls Fiber has passed by 6,000 homes. So that's 5,000 others who could jump onto fiber if they wanted to. We have an airport, one of a handful of airport cities. We have, of course, a full service public works department. So we do, unlike Boise, right? We do our own streets, our own sidewalks and gutters. We do our own sanitation. And we are also involved in water recharge, in addition to all of the other water and wastewater and other things we do. We have a robust GIS offering. We just have a lot going on in the city of Idaho Falls. We have a total of 11 departments if I count the library, and I do, even though I don't control the library leadership because that state law has it separate. We do all of those library employees, the building, they all belong to the city of Idaho Falls.
It is complex, and I'm always in awe how you do this. You have so many things going, but it's not even like as if that isn't the full day job. You are deeply involved with energy. So whether it's nuclear energy or clean energy, battery technology, those kind of things with the lab. So you serve a really important role with Idaho National Lab.
Yeah, well, the advocacy for that is very important because we have been told, and I have seen it bear out, that the temperature of the water in the local community, whether it's hospitable or cold shoulder or just hot and angry, whatever it is, it really has an impact on the congressional funding that comes through. It has an impact on the amount of attention that the Department of Energy will give to the programs that it sends to a particular facility. And so we want to make sure that everyone in Washington, D.C., whether they're on the administration side or on the congressional side, committees, staff members, all of everybody, we want to make sure that they know that this is a great place to do business and that we are friendly to the work that's being done here.
That is a really interesting component, and it is the idea of what we know is coming. So I mentioned before we started that Dr. Peters was on, really his last day was with us last Friday, and you have been deeply involved in Line Commission leadership in nuclear energy, and deeply committed with Mark and the staff out there. So when it comes to, let's just talk about nuclear for a second. How do you think about that? What's the deal with small modular reactors, and what are you going to do when there's 6,000 new people in headed our direction as the SMRs begin to take shape?
Well, the small modular reactors are part of what we refer to as the next generation of nuclear. And next generation nuclear is, just like we talk about, we used to talk about software in terms of 1.0, 2.0, and, we have that jargon, or we'd talk about, oh golly, now I can't remember what I was going to say. But anyway, we next generation just refers to those improvements in terms of nuclear technology that's better than what we've had before. And what we've had before is a whole fleet of nuclear reactors that generate a lot of energy. And so they're great, power workhorses for, regions, but they are expensive, very expensive to build, and they take a long time to build, and they're not nimble in any way, shape, or form. And the idea behind next generation is that we're getting small or micro reactors that are portable or modular in the sense that they can be built somewhere and then, transported. So we're trying to cut down on the costs and then the bulkiness and the expense of traditional nuclear. But we're also finding that if you can generate fewer megawatts, you don't need 1,000 megawatts. Here in Idaho Falls, we think maybe in the coming coming decades, our need for new energy sources maybe is along the lines of somewhere between 5 and plus megawatts, right? So why in the world would we need to build an expensive 1,000 megawatt facility? So next generation is, it makes sense. And so the small modular reactors, it's an opportunity for many small communities, over 30 of them, throughout the Intermountain West to come together and become co-owners of a facility that puts out less, but still that high quality, non-carbon emitting energy. So I'm maybe straying from where you want to go, but we can keep talking about why nuclear is promising.
No, I think that's the whole point. So NewScale out of Corvallis has really taken an affinity for our region, and you bring up these new large, massive power plants. You and I were on a trip probably a year ago to Georgia to Plant Vogtle, and they were putting in a second massive nuclear plant, and that's probably the last one this country will build. But one of the things that we were intrigued with was the unpreparedness of the region for the number of workers. And of course, there's two kinds of workers, right? The kind that come in and do the construction and leave, and the others that manage that power generation. What do you think about? And certainly you're enthusiastic about the growth, but this could be, I shouldn't say uncontrolled growth, pretty significant growth.
It will be significant growth. And it's not just small modular reactors. There's a whole host of projects that are part of that next generation of nuclear that are projected to come to our area. And because of all of those that are on the list, it makes the decade of the 20s, right, from now until 2030, extremely active in terms of growth in that particular sector, not to mention all of the support growth that we'll have when people come in, just to, the family members of all those workers. But we have, now I lost my train of thought, other than to say that, so when we went to Georgia, right, we learned a lot of things. And one of the things we learned was that you will grow, and it will take you by surprise if you're not prepared. And then they gave us lots of tips for being prepared. One of the other folks on the trip was Amy Lentz, who is the supply chain coordinator at, and I've shortened her title, and it's not accurate when I say that, but she works with supply chain development at INL. And she and I had a conversation, hosted one yesterday with local elected officials. And the key takeaways that we identified from that trip are, one, that you really need to collaborate when it comes to education and make sure that you're doing the right kind of planning for that. And that would include education, filling the talent pipeline long-term, right? So we want to take a look at K-12, make sure that we're preparing kids to be ready to think about working here. We also want to talk about higher ed and making sure that folks get the right degrees and certificates they need. We also need to talk about educating the workforce that's here already and making sure that we're recruiting the right people and we're retraining the right people. So there's a big education component, and Rick, you're the expert on that. I'll interview you next week and we'll talk about your plans there. But we also noted that we have to build a strong local supply chain. So we have to have suppliers from all over the world to make sure that we're getting the components that we need. The more local we can buy, the better, but not everything is produced locally. So or even nationally. So there's a lot of planning to do there. One of our takeaways is that we need to have strong communication between all the players, and that would be education folks, community leaders, legislative leaders, transportation people, a lot of different players. We also need to have early planning. One of the quotes that I wrote down in my notes from that trip was, "Don't underestimate the challenges, and plan, plan, plan." And so here's the thing: if we don't plan, we will be held accountable for the uncontrolled growth, and rightly so. If we do plan and we overplan because some of these projects don't come to fruition, that's okay. That's completely okay. And so we do need to get into planning mode.
I am so intrigued that you think about the growth of Idaho Falls, and of course we include Aman in that growth, but we'll pretend like this isn't going out beyond just you and I, but I would say, as we look at a 2-year college, the four of us that are 2-year colleges, none of us will touch College of Western Idaho. Literally, they can, in the Treasure Valley, they've got half of Idaho is probably within 20 miles of College of Western Idaho. Us, on the other hand, as a baby institution, I'll just say, and it'll be our little secret, I think we will be the second largest community college given time, simply because of the demographics and the expected growth of Idaho Falls and Bonneville County and Region 6. You want
I
to
agree
reflect on that for a second? And
Well, I think that just makes sense. We've already identified, as we've talked about regional economic development, we've already said that we will be and are the second largest market outside of the Boise area. Eastern Idaho right now is at the beginning of, I think, growth that it has never experienced before. I know that there are some people, whether you are one of those people or are related to or have had conversations with them, who are going to put on the rose-colored glasses and say, we want to stay the same way that we've always been. We don't want to change. But as the world becomes increasingly, mobile and global, we want to be able, and as we're digital, right? And you can, go to work and do half your work off of a small device of some kind. We want to make sure that this place is attractive enough to retain our families. I have 4 kids. I want some of them at least to be around me when I get old. And so I do believe, as a working philosophy, that growth is a good thing. If a community isn't growing, it's probably stagnating, and nobody wants to be mayor of stagnation, right? So it is important for us to grow and plan for that growth, and I believe that we can. So where does community college fit into that? I mean, if I may be so familiar as to call you Rick, we have talked about this before, right? There are so many folks who don't jump from high school to a formal university experience successfully, and there needs to be another path. There also just needs to be a more practical path for folks who maybe need an institution to come back to help supplement what life has taught them or what they've learned. And so a community college is like that essential space between all of the other lily pads out there in the pond. The community college connects everything else. So it's important.
Being a first generation college student is so impressive. And a lot of people we talk to in these forums are exactly that. A lot of them had begun. Senator Lent, for example, had begun his career in community college. Trustee Ozaki began it. So we do play a really important part. And one of the things we worry about is that go-on rate. So partly, a lot of our students, we bleed. We say we kind of bleed millennials, and a lot of our students right after high school move and go elsewhere to college, and that's good. They come from families where it's expected, but we've got so many. I think it's close to 50% of our graduates don't tend to go to post-secondary education.
Wow. I think a lot about go on. When back in 2005, I worked on then Mayor Furman's mayoral campaign. And as a result of his victory, in 2006, we launched the very first Mayor's Scholarship Program. And there were 3 of us who worked on it. And it has grown, and we've just gone past, excuse me, our 15th year. And we've raised money locally to send local high school kids on to Idaho institutions of higher ed. Sorry, my throat always does this when I am talking to people in public. So sorry.
No problem.
The money that we raise isn't very significant. When you give, back then early on, we were giving people $1,000 to go on. But we've done some other things that I think are more significant. One is that we have identified that we don't want to necessarily give the money to the kids who are already earning all of the awards. We want to look for the kids who are that don't qualify for financial aid. That maybe aren't the A++ crowd, but the next here. Those kids that we met early on when we were putting together that scholarship program. We met with admissions counselors from area schools or universities, and they told us that those are the kids who really have that potential to succeed, and they're the ones that they wish they had more funding for. And so we said, well, that's who we want to give money to. So we've been raising money for that, but we also, with that small amount of money that we give them, we hope we're giving them a window, a peek through the window of what higher ed does for them. Our goal is really to put kids on the path. And the path takes them a long way, and it's going to take a lot more money than we give them. But we do hope that that's what we're doing. And I think that if we just paid a little more attention to getting kids on that path and giving them those glimpses and those surges or that infusion of confidence, that they can do amazing things with their future. And even if their parents maybe or their family situation couldn't give them, the buku bucks to make college an easy, attainable goal, we certainly can make higher ed opportunities available. So I'm hoping that CEI has innovative projects beyond just one scholarship program like that to really reach out and embrace these emerging adults and help them to see what their future can be. And I think that's part of curing the go-on rate. It's a very individual process. One young person at a time has to be touched and reached.
You've been really a big advocate of dual credit, and that's probably one of those key factors. So again, we would say here that a sixth grader is important to us. So we try to get out into those junior highs and in high school, and if we can talk about the kind of work that's available here, whether it's cybersecurity or welding or just a whole litany of different opportunities in the region, we'd prefer that our students not leave, or if they do leave, they come back. But if we can get that sixth grader started, and with dual credit, a student may end up with 30 credits. And as you know, that's the first year of college. So now CEI becomes a 1-year second year of college, and then we pass off either a student into a job if they have an Associate of Applied Science, or if they have an AS or AA, onto a university.
Yeah, it was back in 2008 that I was appointed to be a part of a Idaho Department of Education committee to take a look at dual credit. And back then, the universities weren't doing a good job of talking to each other about honoring each other's credits and which universities were honoring credits from which schools. And the flow of acceptance of those credits wasn't very wasn't good. And so from that beginning, and that's where I first became aware of the data that say that the go-on rate for a young person who graduates from high school with college credit is so much higher. It's unbelievably persuasive that you want to be able to have those opportunities, and they're so affordable too. And so to be able to have that degree for a fraction of the cost that it used to require is just powerful. So if I could just, well, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say that our society is becoming so increasingly complex. I remember when a calculator was a little bit controversial. When I was in high school, there were some teachers who said, no calculators in the classroom. And other ones said, well, you should really probably learn how to use one. It's probably the wave of the future, right? Then, we had the same sort of resistance to cell phones at first. They were perceived as technology that was intrusive and in the way and cheating in some way. But over time, we've gotten to now we have social media, which consists of algorithms that are so complex that there's no way that anybody could really try to fathom how we are controlled by or advertised to on our phones and connected because of those algorithms. The complexity of what technology brings into our lives is just, each and every iteration is exponentially more complex than the one before. And my philosophy is that it's not really possible, I think, to live a full life if you walk around like perhaps someone in the 50, 60 years ago who could trust that they could figure something out using pencil and paper, and it was understandable. Engines were easy to understand. You didn't have to plug your engine into a computer to know how to do a repair, right? But we have so many folks who, because they maybe have failed to grasp some education in their or get the education they need, they walk around distrusting. They distrust what they don't understand, and so I just think it's not possible to live a full life if you're walking around distrusting so much. And so then I ask myself lately, why is it that so many people don't believe in the scientific process, or can't tell you what it is, and they don't trust the science that comes from it? Or why are so many people not able to know the difference between good sources and bad sources of information? And why are so many people not understanding the difference between an anecdote and a statistical, reliability? What is the antidote for all of this distrust? It's education. And there is just no way that our society is going to sustain itself at the high level and bring all those folks who are maybe not quite at that high level with us. And I say us because I affiliate with you as a friend and as a friend of the campus. The only way to bring the masses along into this future that is so technologically based is with education. And so there's just such a fundamental reason for us all to be engaged in gathering our arms around everybody and pushing them through the doors of CEI and other institutions of higher learning.
It is always a pleasure. You're so enthusiastic about education, and I'm glad you teed this up. This is the whole idea of critical thinking, isn't it? And when we're done here, and I think we're doing a good job with our faculty. With the faculty, we've hired essentially a block of new faculty, and critical thinking is an important component. Well, let me tell you something that we're going to attempt to do with any graduate we've got, and I'll have you maybe give us a comment on it. So we would say with any of our 3 degrees that a student should have 3 levels of experience with us. So the first one obviously is that recognized degree, so Northwest accredited degree, and they take that with them. The second is some experience with business and industry. So you know that all of our CTE programs have that experience in internships with business and industry. So whether it's S-Tech, whether it is cyber or diesel, have that experience. And then the third one is an industry recognized certification, and that one might be a little odd for you, but the idea would be, now if we've got a student going on to a university, maybe in English, what we'd like to see them do is get maybe a project management certificate, maybe get something in accounting, maybe something in cyber. But what we're giving them would be 3 legs of a stool of employability. Okay. So a recognized degree, some experience with business, and that could be just something really simple with volunteering for a nonprofit. And then the third one is an industry recognized certificate. What do you think about that as an idea for us as a college?
I have to say that I love it, and I'll tell you, I served 2 internships, one for my undergrad and one for my master's, and I will tell you that those experiences weighed heavily into my decision making about grad school. They weighed heavily into my decision making about well, not my decision making, but just that experience. I hearken back to some of that. I did this week thinking about something I learned back in that role. And as I said before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there's so many pieces to each and every profession. Everything is complex, and if you can try on the boots, the coat, the hat, and see if it really fits you, that's good. That's good.
So in the liberal studies realm, we would call this service learning. So it isn't as significant as a welding internship, but it certainly is going out, and maybe you go to the zoo and you're a docent for a while, or talk to the city and and get some kind of experience there. And it's not particularly long, and it's an ability. You write a reflection paper on it. But those are things that I think we need a broader graduate, and a graduation from us needs to mean something more than you have that seat time, that we've documented the number of seats, the number of classes you've got. Now you're a graduate, but it's got to mean more, because skills are an important area to our employers.
In the course of my lifetime, we've gone from rote learning, where you just, memorize your times tables and be able to say that poem that you memorized and be able to perform on a test with what you remember, to being able to say that there are multiple modes of expressing intelligence. And it's not always going to be in that one box that we thought when I was much, much younger. And to be able to, just wave a paper around and say, I'm educated now, is just missing the point. Because if you can't integrate your learning with what your hands can do and what your heart can feel and what your eyes can see needs to be done, then you are not whole. And so I love that you are addressing that you're preparing more well-rounded people, not just pumping out students, ex-students, I guess, once you pump them out. But District 91 used to have a philosophy, and it was part of their strategic planning at one point, and that is that we educate the whole child. And while I wouldn't call CEI students children, I would say that addressing the whole person, from the art to the science and everything in between, including how to take out the garbage even more intelligently, all of that is so important. I mean, just well-rounded. I love it.
It is. I'm going to tee this up for you. It's going to be interesting to see what you think. So we talk about STEM all of the time. So we leave the A in STEAM out of it sometime. And as you recall, A in STEAM is arts. So talk about that. We need graduates that are in the humanities. So what do you think about that? What should we be doing here to help that realm as we move a junior with no debt on to Idaho State? What should we be thinking about?
I haven't given this a lot of thought in terms of the how, but I will say that I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the what and then the why. I think I'm passionate about. We have to be careful, I think, not to overgraduate a lot of people who contemplate their navel and see art in splatters of paint, because not everybody can succeed there or be gainfully employed. But we also have to be really careful not to say society needs 15 welders and 45 this and 25 that, and be so. We have to have that balance between the creativity and the work that needs to get done. And so I guess I better be quiet because I'm not really being articulate here. But I will say that the art behind you on the wall probably is something that your wife produced. And a conversation with her is like a breath of fresh air with a peek into childhood, because she has this joyful approach to life, and she cares about people, and it comes out in the way she uses color to express things, and we need that. I was going to use this as an example for something else. I was going to say, if we had a chance to talk about it, that the way that yeast leavens bread, education leavens society, and art, it leavens the soul. It lifts us. It expands who we are, and we all need some form of that. And so we need people who, like your wife, who know how to infuse us with that individual joy.
So we're talking about a whole person, and I'm really glad that you brought that up. And for some reason, you didn't think I painted that behind me.
I didn't. I assumed.
No, you accurately threw. So I think Linda's watching today, so she will rub this in that the mayor pointed out her skill as an artist, and rightly so. Let's go back to Idaho Falls as a place to live, and this idea of fiber. I am so glad that you've done that. Now we're talking about a different kind of job, and because of COVID, I think a lot of our faculty. In fact, in spring, we made everybody leave campus, and some of them that didn't expect it had to teach from home, and they did a wonderful job. We got great feedback from our students, even with those faculty members who weren't surprised, that were surprised by that. But when we get through this, we may not need to have everybody on campus. And what the important part of that is a robust fiber network in our region, in Bonneville County, but really throughout Region 6 and truthfully across the whole state. What is that infrastructure going to do as we attract people from out of state and maybe even shift in the city of Idaho Falls for how people do work for you?
Wow, that is just such a huge topic. There are several thoughts that I've had while you were introducing the topic. I will say that it is a big part of our future, and it's important, I think, that we all be sophisticated consumers of our broadband. And not all broadband delivery is equal. And fiber right now is the gold standard. It is the best way to deliver broadband service. Idaho is right now just still having the conversation about how to get broadband to everybody. They're not talking about how to get fiber to everybody, but just broadband. And so I do hope that folks who are listening are in a place where they can appreciate that what Aman and Idaho Falls are bringing to our residents is fiber. Okay, so we're bringing the best. Secondly, I hope that we can all become educated enough to know that upload speeds and download speeds matter. And the upload and download speeds that Aman and Idaho Falls are offering far surpass what you're seeing with other broadband and in other places. We exceed the FCC recommendations by, fivefold. I mean, we're just, that is important because you can't have an effective telehealth conversation with a doctor if you can't, if the connection isn't sustained. Same with the classroom experience, or if you have 4 kids in school and they're all trying to use a device to plug into what's going on at school. If you have crappy internet, and I know that's maybe not a good articulate word here, but you will not have a good experience. So the actual vehicle, the fiber, and the quality of the upload and download, or the strength of those, matter a great deal. And so Eastern Idaho residents in our little neck of the woods here are very fortunate as we build this out, that they know that they have access to this. The rest of the state isn't quite as fortunate. There are there's other fiber, and there's other broadband, and there are other providers that are making good money in a commercial transaction, delivering those services, but they're not as consistently wonderful as what we've got large scale here. So I want everybody to understand that. I also want people to understand that this discussion about broadband in our state is going to be happening in the state legislature with renewed vigor and expediency this session, because right. The pandemic has revealed to us how vital it is. So with that, and there's a lot of dialogue that's going to be had there, and I just want people to understand one more thing before I move on to the more fun side of this, and that is that there is nothing inappropriate about the government or the public government, private provider, the government or the public-private partnership that we use in our 2 cities. It is tantamount, and this is the explanation or the analogy that's often used. The cities are building the road, and then we're allowing the mailman, or mail person, whatever, the postal service, FedEx, all of those other deliveries systems to use the road, but we're building and maintaining the road, and that's our role. We don't compete with them because we don't deliver the service, or we just build the road. In other places, those providers are building their own roads, and so you might have 3 or 4 roads going into a neighborhood, all for the delivery, and each service uses their own road. That results in congestion. and duplication, especially if it's a wealthy neighborhood where everybody wants the service. They're all trying to quickly serve those neighborhoods. So our model is elegant because we have, simplified what the road looks like, or the pathway, the conduit for the fiber, and we have created a level playing field for all of those private sector providers to compete. So I hope everybody has that understanding. Then we move on to talking about the future, as you just introduced. The future is going to require this connectivity, and it's going to require that we have flexibility to sometimes meet in person, sometimes work from home, sometimes, to commute long distances and not travel as much. So I'm really excited about what we've learned in these last, 10 months.
So as a college, we're really embracing it, and some of this technology works really well. Some needs additional work. You used a magic word of future, and you and I haven't talked about this, but we'll use it as a verb, and we're doing that right now. So rather than strategic planning, and our trustees have talked about a strategic plan, and early in our existence, it was kind of hard. Nothing was taking shape, or everything was taking shape, but now things are beginning to firm up. So Vice President Barber and Vice President Miles and I are doing some futuring, and that is where we look into the future, and you begin by, what does a region look like? Who's going to be here? What are the demands for the kind of two-year student we put out? We're not putting out baccalaureate, master's, PhD in research. That's not us. But you could be so helpful, Rebecca, by looking into the future ahead of us and say, here are those big opportunities that are coming to Eastern Idaho. So with little or no preparation for you, but you live this every day. What is this? What are the big jobs that you see coming to our region?
And when you say jobs, you mean actual employment opportunities, right?
Employment opportunities that don't require a PhD, but the kind of thing we're going to do when we future as a two-year college. What should we be focusing on?
Oh boy, I think my answer is maybe a bit mundane, but I think, first of all, I will say very optimistically that the future is what we make it into. Mm-hmm. When we future, we project, and I want to project things that I hope others who follow after will also project similar things. But I think that the society that we have will always be reliant, well, let me just say it this way. I'll back up. We know that the laws of supply and demand that operate in a capitalistic system absolutely flourish and require entrepreneurial thinking. And entrepreneurs, what do they eat for breakfast? Research and information, right? And they synthesize the process. And so, and of course, 3 out of 4 entrepreneurial efforts don't even succeed, right? So we need to have lots of fodder for the entrepreneurs so that we can have lots of, future success for the 25% that make it, right? And so we do need science, technology, and energy research jobs. This world will always need food, always need water, and always need energy. And so I love that we're in 2 of those sectors. We are in we are in food production with our agricultural base, and we are in energy and research jobs. So that's important. Let me just talk about ag for just a second. We have world-class barley. We have obviously potatoes in this area. We have canola and quinoa, right? And other grains. We have a lot going on, but there's also the tech side, the agritech, and that is increasingly important. And I would love to see us grow more agritech kinds of opportunity. I think that Kansas shouldn't own all of that, right? We are an agricultural economy as well as a research-based energy technology economy here. And then beyond that, I'm thinking that our regional hub, right, status, we serve people from 3 states, right, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. And with that comes all of the retail growth that has to be managed intelligently. So we need good planners. We also obviously are the hub for arts, and performing arts as well as visual arts, and other experiences like the zoo, like the museum, where you can touch and explore things and learn things as you're being entertained and having your brain fed. And then medical, we're a hub for medical. And so I think all of those things have not yet flourished to the extent that they're going to.
It is important, and we've talked about this all the way through. We may or may not know the specifics of what's going to happen, but we need a base of infrastructure that could handle regardless of where the puck is going to go. So we do have cheap power. We're blessed with that, and of course this infrastructure, a lot of land, so it's easy to build here. We're not landlocked like a lot of areas would be. So the potential for growth is absolutely significant. Rebecca, we're just approaching the end, and this goes so quickly. And one of the things I ask all my guests as we end is, you have been in leadership roles for a long time and have done a great job at it. You're talking to our faculty and staff. What are three principles of leadership you would leave us with?
It's always changing, right? And you're catching me right now. I will say that learning is a huge principle of leadership. Absolutely. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to someone who educates. I learn every day on my job. It's vital. I think another principle that I have learned through the pandemic, and I know I'm not everybody's favorite person right now because we all have approached or responded to the pandemic differently. But I will say that it is very important as a leader to be bold and to be fearless, but you also have to back down when you're wrong. And I had to back down last week on something. You feel sheepish, you feel foolish, but boy, sometimes that other point of view really comes and zings you, and then you realize I didn't hit it. And you have to be able to back down, even if you're bold and fearless. So being bold about backing down maybe is part of that. And then I think there is just always that principle that my mom drilled into my head. She used to call it the Scout Law. But I don't know if we need to just say that the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts use this one. I think we all need to use it, and that is you have to leave the world better than you found it.
Yeah, exactly.
So those are important mantras in my head.
Those are wonderful and
not terribly original, but real.
Yeah. So, what would you like to end with? We're approaching the end of 2020. Most of us want to see that in the rearview mirror. So, you want to end with anything for us, Rebecca?
Well, thank you for that. I've had my share of discouragement this year. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I haven't become ill myself, and so I haven't had that particular discouragement, but I've had my share of discouragements as 2020 has brought so much change abruptly into our lives. But I was just writing something that went out to city employees today and last night or the night before. And as I was trying to find some articles to inspire me, I realized just how much change the pandemic has wrought. And change is, that catalyst. It's part of improving ourselves for the future. So speaking of futuring, right. I think that it will behoove us not to say bye-bye, 2020, see you, don't let the door hit you on your way out. But we need to actually embrace some of the things that this forced change has brought. And it's going to bring some wonderful innovation. It's going to bring some wonderful opportunity in addition to all of the heartache that it brought to us. So I do hope that we can embrace that and future with pandemic lessons under our belt.
So Mayor Casper, what a pleasure to have you. And I always enjoy these conversations. We had a few people listening in, but it is always a pleasure. And I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hope you can relax next week as we go through the holidays.
Well, thank you. And then I wish the same for you and for every single hardworking person who makes